Hello everybody and welcome to the Rugby Magazine Fantasy Show, the show that's going to give you everything that you need to know about our fantasy in the build-up to the Rugby World Cup. So what's the plan with the show? Well, whether you've been playing our game for years or whether you're absolutely brand new to fantasy, there's going to be a little bit of something for everybody. We're going to start off by taking a look at how fantasy works, and then we're going to move on to what makes our game unique. From there, we're going to get you started on the game, we're going to help you build your squad and talk about maintaining your team throughout the course of the season. We're also going to give you an intro to some of the key features and some of the new features that we've built into the game for the Rugby World Cup. But first though, how does fantasy work? At its heart, fantasy is all about numbers, and the numbers that players clock up at game time. Those numbers are converted into points in fantasy, so if a player runs with the ball, they make points. If a player passes the ball, they make points. If a player kicks the ball, they make points. You can see where I'm going with this. Now, whether they make points for you or not depends on whether you've got them in your team, and you get the opportunity to choose your team before the game week kicks off. But there are limitations on that. So for example, you can't choose the entire New Zealand team going into the first round of the World Cup. You're only allowed to choose a subset of players within that team. And then between each round of fixtures, you're able to make transfers. So you're able to remove players from a squad who are perhaps injured or are not performing particularly well and bring in somebody to replace them. And then as each game week goes by and your score accumulates, hopefully you rise to the top of the leaderboard and you beat your mates, because that's what we're all in it for at the end of the day. So what makes our game unique? Well, we've got the core mechanics you'd expect to find in any other fantasy platform, but we've come at it with a fresh pair of eyes and tried to build a game that is best suited to rugby union. Now, where other games allow you to choose 15 players at the beginning of the season, we wanted you to feel more like a director of rugby through the course of a campaign. And with that in mind, you set yourself up with a squad with a minimum of 28 players at the beginning of the season. You can have more players in that. There's a limit in our World Cup game of 35 max, and the limits in our salary games are obviously the salary cap on the amount of players that you can sign, but we generally suggest you keep it tight at the beginning of the season so that you can traverse the ups and downs as they're thrown at you. And then from that squad, you choose the team of players that you want to represent you at game time, and that also includes substitutes. So we all know that rugby is a 23-player game nowadays, and we wanted to represent that. So you choose your subs and they earn you half points. They're also brought into your team if one of your players drops out before a fixture commences. So after you've first earned points in the game, the changes you're able to make to your squad are limited. Where other games have a one-in, one-out policy, ours is a little bit more flexible than that. We have releases and we have signings, which are called call-ups in our international game, and they are two separate things. So you're able to release up to 5 players in a game week. The first one is free. The remaining 4 incur a 20-point penalty that's applied once your points are generated at game time. With transfers, you're able to bring in actually as many as you like within that squad limit I touched on earlier, or within the salary limit that you have in the game. So you could release one player for free, for example in the Premiership, a very expensive player, and bring in 3 or 4 less expensive players that allow you to fill in the gaps in your squad. Just make sure when game time comes around you stay above the minimum of 28 players in your squad, otherwise you won't earn points. As I said, that's one of the really key rules that we have in our game. Once you've started earning points as well, you'll be entered into several different leagues on the site, and of course you can still create custom leagues and invite your friends and challenge them and prove that knowledge is power. So I'm going to run through everything that I've talked about in this episode in more detail in the coming episodes, but in the meantime hit that like and subscribe button and follow us on your favourite social media channel, and look out for the next episode, which is about getting started on our game.